The live, share the live if you want to learn more about it. Please, if you know anybody who would also want to know more about it, then share it. Yeah. So the first, we're almost at 10K. I can start at 10K. When we get to 10K likes, push it out to the FYP. Thank you, Luam Hafte. Yeah. So please like the live, share the live. It's a very important topic for me because, as y'all know, I am originally Eritrean, which is why I'm probably going to be emotional today. So it is an incredibly important topic for me. And I'm going to just say right now, if I get emotional, I'm very sorry. So, yeah. So some of the what's called, some of the stories have faces. I'll show the faces. Some of the stories don't have faces. So if I don't show the faces, then you know they're not there. They're anonymous. And if I do show the faces, then you know the people who gave those testimonies were not anonymous, right? So, yeah. Okay, we reached 10K. Let's, we can start. So the first story is from a Human Rights Watch report on slavery in Egypt. Because there's slavery happening in Egypt. There's slavery happening in Egypt, right? So the first story is going to be about Human Rights Watch and the slavery happening there. The report is called "I Wanted to Lay Down and Die." And it was a report that was done by Human Rights Watch, basically investigating the enslaved people. Wait, give me a second, y'all. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, so the first one is called "I Wanted to Lie Down and Die." And it's a Human Rights Watch report that investigates the Eritreans who are stuck in the Sinai. And that's going to be the first story, right? So I'm going to read a survivor's story. So this person who's a survivor is a 23-year-old Eritrean man who was kidnapped in Sudan next to the Shaghrab refugee camp. And then he was smuggled into Egypt, specifically southern Egypt. And then he was held in the Sinai with 24 other men and 8 women for 6 weeks. So what he says here is the experiences that he had in the 6 weeks. The first group of kidnappers said I had to pay $3,500. They blindfolded all of us and chained our hands and legs together. They threatened to remove our organs if we didn't pay. Even though my family paid, they didn't release me, but instead sold me to a second group. The second kidnappers said we had to pay them $33,000 each because they had bought us from the first group, so we had to help them get their money back. They beat me with a metal rod. They dripped molten plastic onto my back. They beat the soles of my feet, and then they forced me to stand for long periods of time, sometimes for days. Sometimes they threatened to unalive me and put a gun to my head. They hung me from the ceiling so my legs couldn't reach the floor, and they gave me electric shocks. One person died after they hung him from the ceiling for 24 hours. We watched him die. Whenever I called my relatives to ask them to pay, they burnt me with a hot iron rod, so I would scream on the phone. We could not protect the women in our room. They just took them out, raped them, and brought them back. They hardly let us sleep, and I thought I was going to die, but in the end, a group of us managed to escape. So what's happening in the Sinai, if you didn't know this, is there is full-blown slavery happening in the Sinai, where some people, it's by Bedouin communities in the Sinai. So some people are kidnapping people, Eritreans. It's mostly Eritreans who are in the Sinai. They're kidnapping them from Sudan, from refugee camps in Sudan, and then they drag them to the Sinai. And then they sell them or they make them work, basically. Some of them literally are like 12-year-old kids who get kidnapped. Some of them are literally unaccompanied minors, right? Children who get kidnapped actively. So what they actively do, give me a second, 1 second. They're basically taking vulnerable people. They know that those people are vulnerable, so they decide to kidnap them either from Sudan or they kidnap them along the way. Some of these refugees, by the way, they don't even have any intention of actually leaving Sudan or going to Egypt, right? But they still end up getting kidnapped from Sudan. Sometimes I'm gonna add. I have like a whole Excel sheet of the sources, by the way, so I'll post it in my server after I'm done. So all the sources, this particular one I'm reading from a Human Rights Watch report called I Wanted to Lie Down and Die, which is specifically for the trafficked and enslaved people, Eritreans in Sudan and Egypt. But the rest of them, I'm going to be posting them in my server as well, so that you guys know, basically, you guys can have the sources in front of you as well, right? So I'm going to be posting them. So that was the first one. The second one that I want to do is, hold on. Let me get the photo. I have some photos as well, by the way. Okay. So this person only wanted to show her hand. She is a woman in her 30s. My husband was drafted into the Eritrean military, but then he disappeared. When I went to the military base to inquire about him, they accused me of hiding him. So they jailed me, interrogated me, beating me on the legs and back and creating a kidney infection that continues to today. I fled to Sudan but was caught by the Eritrean army and brought back to Eritrea. Again, I escaped to Sudan with my son. His uncle kidnapped him and took him to Eritrea. Another man in the Shagharab refugee camp in Sudan promised to help me, but he sexually abused me. My brother and my sister in the camp. My brother is now mentally ill. Dr. brought me from Sudan to Ethiopia. Today in Ethiopia, I help the other refugee women in the camp through the Women's Affairs Committee. I especially advise the others not to seek refuge in Sudan, where life for refugees is even more dangerous. This is another woman. She also wanted to stay anonymous. Her name is just AT. She's 35 years old. My family are all dead. In Eritrea, I was orphaned, then raised by my grandparents who also died. At age 15, I had a daughter, but I finished secondary school and got a job teaching near the Ethiopian border. There, the Eritrean army arrested me, falsely accusing me of helping people flee to Ethiopia. I escaped prison with my daughter and came to this camp. I'm active in the camp's Refugee Community Council. One way I help is to procure household goods for individuals. My daughter at the camp, but her prospects are limited. I hope I can persuade her not to go to... What the hell? Why did I get... Oh. Why did I get a restriction? Is it because of the photo? What the hell? Why the hell did I get a restriction? Okay, well, you guys won't hear the, what's it called? You won't see the photos then, because for some reason the photos gave me a restriction. I don't know why. That's so weird. The third one is M. Tuwelde, age 49. I joined the Eritrean War of Independence at age 12. I served with the children's unit. We were taught how to be hard and cruel. We would have to eat rotten food, and if we complained, we would be punished for 10 days. If we broke a tooth of a hair comb, we would be punished for 10 days. We were forced to serve in firing squads used to execute Ethiopian prisoners of war. At age 16, I joined the adult fighting force. I loved music. I liked to sing and play the guitar, but was wounded in battle and lost the full use of one of my hands, so I could no longer play. Still, I was forced to continue shooting a rifle and operating artillery despite the pain. I was eventually discharged, but then drafted again in 2011. I escaped to this camp with several of my children. My son left the camp for Sudan in the hopes of forward migration, but he was kidnapped and sold. Fortunately, he escaped and is now back here in the camp. I managed to do some construction work here, but my hand is disabled, and I head the community for disabled refugees. What do I do for music? I play organ. They could never take music away from me. I am now partnering with an outside NGO to try to organize a musical instrument program at the camp. Please do like the live, y'all. It would be really nice. This is a refugee. His name is Solomon. And this is his story from Egypt as well. Let's see if I can try to put the photo up. Hold on. Hopefully it works. Okay, there we go. So this is Solomon. And the title of this is called One Refugee Without Hope, Eritrean Teen Does Not Dare to Dream. In the harsh, arid landscape of Salom, there is a small, fragile figure walking alone in the desert sun, shielding himself from the dust and wind, battling his inner fears and insecurities. Meet Solomon, 17 years old, a refugee from Eritrea who has no one and nothing to call his own. Solomon is a serious young man who believes that his life is cursed. I've had a harsh life since I was born. I never went to school, never had a childhood. He is among 145 refugees accepted by Sweden for resettlement from Salem on the Egypt-Libya border, and yet he does not dare to hope for the future he craves. I'm so happy that I have finally the opportunity to go to a better place, he said cautiously, but I'm not going to believe it until I get there. My life might continue as before. Solomon was born in Sudan to Eritrean refugee parents he never knew. His father died before he was born. His mother followed after childbirth. He was brought up by a nun named Selas and sold water for a living. He was 12 when Selas died. I still miss her so much. She was the only family I had, he said sadly. He was given a new caretaker, a Sudanese man, who tried to convert him. He went to the bigger town of Alfao and sold water for 6 months, sleeping in the bus station at night. He made enough money to move to the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, where he worked as a cleaner in a law firm. The others made it to Italy, but he stayed in Libya. He felt threatened in Tripoli with its excessive military presence, so he moved in Benghazi, where he worked and lived in a cafe. On one of the few occasions he ventured out, he was arrested for wearing a cross. I was put in a dark, small cell with a small opening for a light. I was blindfolded, and I didn't know where I was held. They kept saying I'm from Israel, and they tortured me with electricity. I was really scared, he said, shaking as he recounted his experience. This is a 17-year-old, by the way. I just wanted to say that. It's a 17-year-old kid who's talking about these experiences, right? I was put in a dark cell. Oh, when the Libyan revolution began, Solomon was released along with all other prisoners. Then sub-Saharan Africans started getting attacked, and he made his way to a Libyan Red Crescent camp for safety. In March, he joined thousands of others who were evacuated by the International Organization for Migration from Libya to Salom in northeastern Egypt. Salom is currently hosting several hundred migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers who fled the war in Libya. Although there are other Eritreans of his age in the camp, he prefers to keep himself in a little tent that he has proudly made with a UNHCR plastic sheet. Solomon is still haunted by memories of the torture he went through. He finds it difficult to open up, to make friends, or trust people. I didn't have a good childhood. When I get the chance, I'll make friends, he said, a little unsure of himself. But what would I talk about? I have nothing to share except my problems. I can tell them about my life, but I never want to talk about my parents or Salas. I still feel pain. I'm not healed. The only good thing about Salom, he feels, is the Egyptian authorities. I appreciate and admire the military in Salom. They don't touch us even when we're rude to them. Sounding wiser than his years, he added, Egypt's in a very difficult situation. I didn't expect a country with no government to treat us well. So this is like during the transition, right? So that's why he's talking about the government. Yes, he's a 17-year-old talking about this. Give me a second. He's a 17-year-old talking about this situation exactly. UNHCR believes that one refugee without hope is too many. Life has been difficult for Solomon, a hard-working boy who dreams of saving up money for a better future. I had plans. I wanted to save money so that I could study and have a better life, a good education. I never got that opportunity, he said, refusing to believe that he now does. He concedes that opportunities can come by. Nothing remains the same in life. Things can change dramatically for the better. If it wasn't for UNHCR, I wouldn't have the chance for a better life, but I can't trust my luck. His name is Solomon, a 17-year-old kid. The next story is, give me a second, of this family. Gebre's story, an Eritrean refugee's African odyssey. They crossed the border at midnight, grief-stricken at the death of their daughter. So the baby in the picture is unalived. They crossed the border at midnight, grief-stricken at the death of their daughter the previous day. Gebre's 2-year-old girl, Arsema, perished from the flu. The night after they buried her, Gebre, 28, and his wife, Teka, 25, decided to make their way to Ethiopia. Arsema's death was just one reason for their escape. Gebre was exasperated with the 7 years in the military, part of Eritrea's obligatory decades-long national service, with not even enough money to pay food for his family. There seemed no end to the misery, Gebre recalled, here in Ethiopia. So he's basically saying there is no end to the misery in Ethiopia. The crossing took place under a new moon. The plan was to go first to Sudan, stay for a bit, and then move to Ethiopia. Gebre had friends who knew the trails across the mountainous border, and they guided them through, avoiding all the Eritrean patrols. By dawn, the family was walking to the Shaghrab refugee camp in eastern Sudan, where they would regroup for the next leg of their trip. Gebre asked for directions from local residents. After their conversation, another group of men pulled up in a pickup truck. These men, called Rashaida, were light-skinned and carried AK-47s. Gebre and his wife were ordered into the back of the vehicle, which was then covered with canvas. The men told the couple that they would be taken to Shaghrab camp. Each year, thousands of Eritrean refugees attempt to make the crossing into Sudan and Ethiopia. Many are bound for Egypt, Israel, Morocco, and Europe, but for some, the journey ends in misery. At the Mai Aini and Abdi Hurush camps in Ethiopia, there are more than 400 people who have been returned by Egyptian authorities, including Gebre and Tekka. UNHCR believes that many others have either starved to death in the desert, died crossing rivers, or have been unalived by smuggling gangs. The deportees are the lucky ones, says Michael Owur. I'm very sure that many refugees just perish. Officials at UNHCR have expressed alarm at the number of refugees that are attempting to make the perilous journey from Ethiopia to third countries. A recent report indicated that as many as 80% of the new arrivals at Shaghrab camp in Sudan had come from camps in Ethiopia. Those who fail the first time come back to Ethiopia only to try again, says UNHCR. They feel like they have lost everything and therefore have nothing left to lose. We need to offer them psychological support, but also livelihood programs so that they can discover their potential and stabilize their situation. Smugglers even attempt to penetrate the refugee camps, offering transport to third countries in exchange for payment, which is often provided by relatives of new arrivals. In one case, Ethiopian authorities arrested a group of aid workers who were suspected of providing assistance to smugglers. In many respects, Gebre and Tekka's journey is typical. An hour and a half after they were forced into the pickup truck, the pair found themselves in the compound of the smugglers who demanded $3,000 to secure their release. They told us if we did not find the money, they would wrap us in plastic and then burn us. This is actually crazy. That they would burn us. Gebre said, they beat me, but not badly. They beat my wife hard enough to leave a scar on her back. For 10 days, the threats continued. Gebre told his captors the truth that he didn't have the money to pay their ransom. We didn't think about anything except just to escape or to wait and see what happened, says Gebre. He and his wife didn't escape, and they weren't unalived. Instead, they were sold and taken in another pickup truck to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, where they were sold again, this time to Bedouins. They were taken to an enclosed camp where they were fed a small amount of rice and porridge. There were about 35 other captives, Sudanese, Somalis, and Ethiopians sat quietly. Every attempt was made to isolate them. Everyone was told that if they spoke, they would be unalived. The Bedouins allegedly told Gebre and Tekke that they must come up with $6,000 ransom or be unalived. The couple believed them. They gave Gebre a telephone and told him to call his family in Eritrea. He got through, but it was more than his kin could afford, and they had to beg for help from others. The negotiation for payment lasted more than 5 weeks. But having hello, sorry, my battery thingy, my bad, y'all. Okay, I had never wanted to go to Egypt, and I never wanted to go to Israel. Let me put the Let me put the charger in. Sorry, y'all. Okay. I'd never wanted to go to Egypt, and I never wanted to go to Israel, Gebre says, but we knew what we would face if we stayed in Egypt, so I asked the Bedouin which way to the Israeli border. The captors pointed their fingers, and Gebre and his wife began to walk. It was only a few minutes before they heard the shots ringing through the air. The tribesmen had pointed Gebre and Tekke towards an Egyptian patrol. Gebre was shot in the lower back, the bullet exiting near his stomach. Tekke had a part of her arm ripped off by another shot. They were taken to a hospital in Sinai, where a female doctor treated their wounds. Gebre described her as the first person during their whole journey to treat them with kindness. After a month, they were taken to an Egyptian prison. It was underground, and you couldn't see anything, Gebre recalls. We were separated, males and females. I couldn't talk to my wife. Describing the experience, Gebre says, you feel as if you are losing your mind. In fact, many thoughts passed through his mind. I thought about my parents and how they transferred their lives to the Bedouin for me. He says, I thought about how I was disabled because of the bullet wound. My wife had also been wounded. How would she take care of herself? Gebra's thoughts also turned to his daughter Arsema. I thought about how she passed away at such a young age, he says. What would she have said to me? She probably still would have been too young to understand what we have lost. Finally, the kindly doctor came to the prison to treat the couple's wounds. She told them she would return, and several months later she arrived, this time with a representative from the Ethiopian embassy in Cairo. The man took the couple's photo and their address. The doctor told Gebra that the doctor would pay the airfare. A year after their ordeal, Gebra and Tekke are now living in the Mai Aini refugee camp and have a child named Samiel. I think of my son and I have at least some hope in my life, says the proud father, smiling. I hope that he will go to school and become responsible. I hope that one day when I grow old that he will take care of me. This one is from an Eritrean who is in Uganda. It was an unsent letter to his brother. I might get emotional with this one, sorry y'all. For some reason, every time I read this letter, I get so emotional. But this is a letter from an Eritrean who fled when he was 19 years old. And it was a letter that he would have sent to his brother, but he didn't send it. So let me go back to this picture because I don't have his picture because he stayed anonymous, right? Dear brother, I write to you from a refugee camp in Uganda with a heavy heart. It has been 1 year since I escaped from Sawa. Sawa is the military academy within Eritrea. There is mandatory military conscription, and a lot of people flee because they've been conscripted for too long or they don't want to get conscripted. The conscription is there because we literally have a genocidal country, Ethiopia, right next to it, who continuously threatens to invade. So that's why the conscription is there. But because it's indefinite, it has caused a lot of harm to your average Eritrean person. And so a lot of people end up like fleeing, right? So this is one. So I read one from refugees in Libya. I read one from refugees in Egypt, one from refugees in Sudan, and one from refugees in Ethiopia. And this one is a refugee in Uganda. So letter, this was released in 2022, by the way, and this person had left a year earlier. Dear brother, I write to you from a refugee camp in Uganda with a heavy heart. It has been 1 year since I escaped from Sawa. Do you remember the night I slipped away? I hugged mother goodbye under the acacia tree by our home. She held me so tight as if memorizing the shape of me. I was only 19 years old, but I felt as old as our war-scarred hills. In my rucksack, I carried a photo of father in his tikadalai. Tikadalai means rebel. Uniform. That black and white one where he's smiling after the victory at Massawa. All his life he believed in the promise of Eritrea. I did too, with all my heart. But I could not see any future for me in our country except as a soldier guarding endless trenches. The journey out was a nightmare. I won't tell her about it. 3 days across the scorching desert to Sudan, crammed in a truck with other escapees. One friend, a girl from Keren, didn't make it. We lost her to the heat and exhaustion. I still see her face in my dreams. The smugglers were cruel. At one point, we were left without water for a day and a night. I kept clenching that photo of father. Another restriction, that's crazy. I still see her face in my dreams. The smugglers were cruel. At one point, we were left without water for a day and a night. I kept clenching that photo of father, drawing strength from his sacrifice and the dream he fought for. When I finally crossed the border, I collapsed and wept, torn between relief and guilt. Brother, I feel I have abandoned you all. I think of mother waking up at dawn, still hoping to hear my voice in the next room. I think of our little sisters asking when I'll come home. What home can I promise them now? I'm safe from the military police, yes, but I ache with longing for Hafash, for our people. In the camp here, I met an old comrade of father's. He told me that father would understand why I left, that our struggle has taken a new form now. I hold on to that. Every night I pray for Eritrea. I pray that no more of our youth will have to run as I did, or drown in the sea, or languish in prisons. I pray that one day I can return to a country that honors the freedom of our parents bled for. Until then, I remain in this strange land, neither here nor there, with Eritrea living in my heart. Please tell mother I'm alive and safe. Tell her I'm sorry, and that I will come home when our land knows peace and freedom again. Your loving brother. Sorry, y'all. That one is always a hard one. If you've come in late, I'm just reading testimonies from Eritreans whose eyes are stuck in Libya or stuck in Uganda or This is a testimony from a trafficker in Egypt. I know it's not from an Eritrean person, but instead a person who trafficked Eritreans, but I still also think it's important to hear their word. This person is an Egyptian trafficker who's talking very openly, mind you, about how they enslave people. How they enslave people, right? So this is from a Human Rights Watch report called I Wanted to Lie Down and Die. As I mentioned before, it was the report that I read the initial testimony from as well, from the Eritrean person who was a survivor of slavery in the Sinai. And now this is from the trafficker's side. So now you get to see the person who's doing these things. I buy Eritreans from other Bedouins near my village for about $10,000 each. So far, I have bought about 100. I keep them in a small hut about 20 kilometers from where I live, and I pay 2 men instead to stand guard. I torture them so their relatives pay me to let them go. When I started a year ago, I asked for $20,000 per person. Like everyone else, I've increased the price. I know this money's haram, shameful, but I do it anyway. This year, I made about $200,000 profit. The longest I held someone was 7 months, and the shortest was 1 month. The last group was 4 Eritreans, and I tortured all of them. I got them to call their relatives. When I'm speaking about this, by the way, please, can people not mention, like, other countries and also not mention Deen? I'd hope that people can stay respectful and just stick to Eritrea, because this whole live is dedicated to only Eritrean testimonies. So I'd hope that people don't bring up other countries or or Deen or whatever it is. The longest I held someone was 7 months, and the shortest was 1 month. The last group was 4 Eritreans, and I tortured all of them. I got them to call their relatives and to ask them to pay $33,000 each. Sometimes I tortured them while they were on the phone so their relatives could hear them scream. I did to them what I do to everybody. I beat their legs and feet, and sometimes their stomachs and chest with a wooden stick. I hang them upside down, sometimes for an hour. 3 of them died because I beat them too hard. I released the one that paid. About 2 out of every 10 people I torture pay what I ask. Some pay less and I release them. Others die of the torture. Sometimes when the wounds get bad and I want to torture them more, I treat their wounds with bandages and alcohol. I beat women but not children, and I have not raped anyone. My parents don't know I do this, and I don't want them to know. I'm not interested in speaking to anyone who wants me to stop doing this. The government doesn't care, so I don't mind talking to you. The police won't do anything to stop us because they know that if they come to our villages, we will shoot. The military might try to get us, but I'm young, so I don't think about that. I first started doing this because I had no money, but saw others making lots of money this way. I know about 35 others who sell or torture Eritreans in the Sinai. There are 15 just near my house, living close to each other. We are from different tribes. Some just buy them and sell them on to others, and some of us torture them to get even more money. Yeah. I'm going to release the resources of this, by the way. Just so you guys know, I will be releasing everything. So let's read this one now. Hold on. How do I make it bigger? Oh, there we go. Okay. This is a bunch of testimonies from women. Yeah. When I was still in high school in Asmara, one of my friends introduced me and some others to a guy called Muhammad who began to tell us how tough life would be in Eritrea. We spent some time with him among our group of friends, and after 3 months of knowing him, Muhammad said he could get us to Sudan and then even to the US to find a better life. Some of my friends and I decided to take the opportunity. Muhammad told us that he could take us out of the country for free and even help us with visas and everything we needed. He told us he'd put us in touch with his brother who would take us all the way to Sudan. In our run to our departure, Muhammad would ask us about our family, if we had any relatives abroad, what jobs they did, that sort of thing. The day before we left, he suddenly told us we'd need to take money for the journey. He told us to bring 40,000 nafa between the 3 of us who were traveling, and also not to forget phone numbers for our family members. The day we left, we were so sad and scared to leave our families and homes, but also excited about the future. I only took 1 blouse, 1 pair of trousers, and 500 milliliters of water along with my money. We began to chat in the car, but the driver told us to keep our mouths shut. He and another man were seated in front, and they spoke to each other in a language we didn't understand. We drove for days and days, and at some point we stopped, and a guy came to us holding a gun and forcing us into a pickup truck, shouting at us in this language we didn't know. They forced some of us to sit down in the pickup and others into the back of the pickup, and covered us with a blanket. Around this point, I started to get really thirsty and hungry. We had never thought it would be this far or take this long. Then the car broke down and the driver was shouting and screaming in his language, trying to fix the car, but also getting angry at us. He shouted at us and we didn't understand. Then he hit our friend who was helping him repair the car. We had to sit in the desert for the whole day with no food or water. One of my friends fainted, but the driver told me not to help her. I was exhausted and terrified, and even started to pray that intelligence agents would find us and arrest us. The driver began to take our belongings, our phones, our bags, anything we had, and threaten us with a gun to make us hand them over. Just as I gave up hope, another pickup truck arrived. They forced us in and we carried on. Later, we reached a hut where they told us to drink from a big 5-liter container. But they laughed so much as we went to drink that we became afraid of what they'd done to the water, and only took a little. Things got worse when we reached Port Sudan. Here we met a tall man with one Rashida. He told us to call our family members who lived and worked abroad and tell them to send $5,000 within 3 days, otherwise we would be unalived and left in the desert. I called my sister. I hadn't even told her I was leaving. I told her she had to find the money and send it or they would unalive me. They separated us and told us not to talk until the money arrived. I was scared to death. One of my friends was unwell. The stress and the conditions had made his body swell up. He asked me to stand on his back. I stood up to help him, but the Rashida man came and smashed me in the face with his gun and knocked out one of my teeth. They spoke to my sister, who told them to put me on the phone. They let me just say hello, then took the phone back and demanded money. We had to wait 4 days, surviving only on 2 liters of water and a little bread. Finally, they received some of the payments. They took the ones who had paid to Kassala and then to Khartoum. From there, I left to Kenya and finally managed to make it to Kampala. Now, I just want those people who caused so much suffering in this way to be found and to have to face justice for what they did. Yeah. Her name was Hayat Ibrahim. The next one is Tsaga. Tsaga says, I'm the only child in my family. I left school early to help my mother, and both of my parents were very worried that I would have to leave the home to do national service. The police came to search for me several times, but I always hid at my friend's house. My father said he would die if they took me to do national service. So in August 2011, I decided I had to leave. Our neighbor's son told me that he could get me to Sudan, so I agreed to go with him. I did not tell my parents, but when I escaped, they were both arrested in my place. I did not tell my parents, but when I escaped, they were both arrested in my place. They will not be released until someone can pay a 50,000 Nafa fine. It was in September 2011 that I left home with the neighbor's son. We and 4 others, 2 women and 2 men, shared a car from Hagas to Barentu. From Barentu, we walked for 4 nights to reach Sudan. After crossing the border, the group separated. We were told to each go by ourselves to the Shaghrab camp. I went with the neighbor's son, and when we arrived at our camp, he told me I had to pay him 12,000 Sudanese pounds to cover his expenses. I explained that I had no money, nobody to pay for me, and that he hadn't said this before, that I would need to pay. I have no idea if the others had paid. He just said nothing in life comes for free, and gave me to a group of Eritrean boys. I don't know if they paid him for me. At first, they kept me in shackles. They gave me drugs, partially because I was suffering a lot of pain from the abuse they were inflicting on me. But then I started to pretend that I would stay with them of my own free will, so they released me. But they still kept me locked in a house, usually with a scarf wrapped tightly around my head. After about 2 months, a small local boy noticed me in the hut where I was kept. One day, I was only guarded by one of the kidnappers. So when he went to the bathroom, I locked him inside and escaped with the help of the local boy. I went to the UNHCR office and the kidnappers followed me there, but I had met some people from my hometown who protected me from them. At UNHCR, I got my refugee ID card, but I never said what had happened to me because I didn't want it to be public, and I knew UNHCR wouldn't do anything anyways. I did tell the people from my hometown what had happened though, and from then on, we all stayed together and they protected me. I would sleep indoors with 4 other girls while 4 boys would sleep outside to protect us. The kidnappers came often. Keep getting restricted. It's actually crazy. don't know. I did tell people from my hometown what had happened, though, and from then on, we all stayed together and they protected me. I would sleep indoors with 4 other girls while 4 boys would sleep outside to protect us. The kidnappers came often and they would see me, but they didn't dare to try to take me again. I still feared being taken from Jarab, though, so me and my friends decided to continue towards Khartoum. We paid smugglers 300 Sudanese pounds per person, although my friends paid for me. We left Jarab on foot up the river, which we crossed by boat. We then took a boxy, a pickup, with 10 people and drove 3 nights until we were on the outskirts of Khartoum. From here, we continued separately on rickshaws. I found work at a house, but the job was very hard, so I left. However, I had to return as it was impossible to find other work. I earned 200 Sudanese pounds per month for cleaning, washing, and ironing. I do have my own room, which I can lock, but I don't really speak to the family. I only have 1 day off a month. At first, the family shouted at me a lot, but now they're beginning to speak to me more normally. I do not want to stay in Sudan, but I have no other option. I have no direct contact with my parents back in Eritrea, but I know from a friend that they are still in prison, unable to pay the fine, and punished for my own escape. This is Asli. When I was in the 11th grade at high school, my family arranged my marriage. In our tradition, a girl should not be unmarried in her 20s. I was married within 3 months of the day I was told about the wedding. Early in our marriage, while pregnant with our first child, my husband was called to join the military due to the border conflict with Ethiopia. So, talking about Badime basically in 98. At that time, everyone joined the military. Even my younger brother was there at the front. The conflict dragged on and life was tough, constantly waiting for money from my husband, which was too little in any case. I couldn't support my children on my husband's salary alone, just 500 nafa, which is about like $40 to $50, by the way. So it's like $40 to $50 a month. Which I don't know how you can like live off of like $40 a month. To pay for rent, food, and clothing, it was impossible. We moved back in with my family, but I couldn't bear to see myself unable to support my kids and my mother. I became angry and depressed. I cried for days. Then I heard through my neighbor about jobs in Arab countries that paid well that would allow me to support my family. Using a loan from one of my relatives, I organized the people to take me there, a sponsor, money for my medical checkup and an air ticket, and a contract fee for the agent. My mother tried to stop me, but I had to go. I sent a letter to my husband and my brother telling them I was leaving, and without waiting for their reply, I left. Leaving my children and my mother behind was the hardest decision of my life. But I went to Saudi Arabia to start working as a maid in a family home. I had to wake up at 4 a.m. every day early during Ramadan and wouldn't finish until 1 a.m. The days were incredibly long and I was only allowed to have a day off once a month. My monthly salary was $100. At first, things were okay in the job, but after a while, I became very upset at the way they all treated me and with the workload. In the second year of the job, the wife of the family didn't send my wages to my family. I challenged her over it, but she said she'd sent it. After that, she began to nag me and throw things at me. She was always angry and would shout at me, saying she would have me put in jail and that I would rot in prison. I knew no one had rights there. I didn't know where to turn. I became depressed and just wanted to die. Then one day I received a call. It was my husband saying he had escaped to Sudan and that he was going to head for Italy. He asked me to send him $500 so he could get to Libya, then cross the Mediterranean. He let me know he had arrived safely in Libya and had found a place in a boat and that in a week he would be in Italy. I heard nothing for a month. Then one day, I received a call from someone I didn't know in Italy. He told me he had been with my husband. Oh my God. This is crazy. He told me he had been with my husband in Libya and that the boat my husband had been on had sunk. Everyone aboard drowned. Everyone aboard drowned, including her husband. I was out of my mind with grief. Lord. This is Askalu. When I left school, I worked as a cleaner in a chicken farm. There, I started a relationship with a coworker who said he wanted to marry me, but when I got pregnant, he left me. My family also threw me out of the home when they found this out. After the birth of my daughter in March 2005, I went to Asmara and took a job as a domestic worker. I was treated badly by the family and was scared that I would be called for national service, so I decided to leave. I went to the border town of Tesane and worked selling water at the bus station. The money was barely enough for me and my daughter to survive, and I could not save anything. So in August 2010, I left on foot for Sudan, carrying my daughter on my back. I met some nomads on the roads and walked with them to their destination. From there, they showed me the way and I continued alone. However, the Rashaida found me and captured me and my daughter. We were locked in a house for a month and they told me that I had to find money to pay ransom if I wanted to be freed. They raped me and they threatened to unalive me. They also threatened to cut out my kidney and sell it if I couldn't find money for a ransom. It's cute. Yeah. They also threatened to cut out my kidney and sell it if I couldn't find money for a ransom. While we were captured by the Rashaida, my daughter asked me why we were locked up like this and said, "It's because you don't have money, isn't it?" I had the number of a friend in Khartoum, and this friend contacted my sister. My family had thrown me out, but my sister stayed loyal to me and went to the mosque to collect 2,500 Sudanese pounds to buy my freedom. Back then in 2010, the ransoms were much lower than they are today. Once they received the money, the Rashaida released me to Kassala. My sister sent me some money there, and I heard that Shaghrab is very bad, so I decided to go straight to Khartoum, where I have found work and my daughter is now in school. However, my status is still uncertain. I still have no papers. I just want my daughter to have a better life than I have had. This person is called Lord Hewitt. What is this person's name? I left Eritrea to escape national service because everyone knows the terrible conditions of the training and the horrible treatment by the officers. In the big towns, it is sometimes possible to escape national service, but where I come from, everyone knows everyone, so it's impossible to hide. Someone will report you to the authorities. I tried to escape once in 2009, but was caught with fake papers and sent back to an underground prison, Ad-Sirar, and later to Weya, a prison and military training camp. I left again in July 2010 through the Tesane border. I was told we would take a car, but we had to walk all the way to the border. We started at 8 p.m. and didn't arrive until 9 a.m. the next day. Eventually, we made it to Jaghrab refugee camp in Sudan. I didn't stay long there because I heard people talking about a better life in Israel, so I made connections to go there. Some men separated those of us who wanted to go to Israel and kept us in a hut for a couple of days. From there, we walked for 3 days and were transferred to other Rashaidas who had a pickup truck. They made us all get in. There were 20 of us in total. We drove through the desert for 8 days and nights with no rest. We were given just a small piece of cake for each day, and there was hardly any water. They even mixed some kerosene in the water so that none of us drank too. What? What? They added kerosene to the water so that the people don't drink the water. Bruh. This is sick. The pickup was far too overcrowded. The route was long and we were exhausted and terrified. The desert was so tough. It was so sunny, hot, and windy. I couldn't see anything but sand. I have no idea how they knew the road. We were so scared that we would get lost out there. We have heard that so many people lost their lives in the desert for different reasons. Cars that break down in the middle of nowhere where you can't get help. Sometimes the car has too many passengers and they just force some out and leave them behind. Or the car gets stuck and can't move anywhere. Some who got lost and didn't know the way back. Others who finished the water or didn't bring water at all to save space to take extra passengers. Even if you get sick on the way, no one will care for you. They will just leave you in the desert. We saw so many human skeletons on the way. All we could do was pray to get out of the desert quickly and safely. This is actually sick. It's actually sick, I'm not gonna lie. Let's read that one again. We saw so many human skeletons on the way. And imagine each of these human skeletons a mom that carried them 9 months, had a family who loved them. They probably left a void behind. Some of them probably had children. And now they're nothing more than just skeletons in the middle of nowhere. Imagine how sick that is. Anonymous skeletons. So imagine if the families are looking for them. Imagine how many families are probably looking for their loved ones, not knowing that they're just a skeleton now in the desert. They're probably like, it's actually sick, I'm not gonna lie. Finally, after 8 days and nights, we reached the Sinai. After 3 days there, 60 of us were transferred from a small town back to the desert. From there, we were made to walk for 13 hours each to reach the Egypt-Israel border. The route from Sinai to the Israeli border is very risky. Sometimes the two sets of soldiers, Egyptian and Israeli, open fire on unalive refugees. The Egyptian soldiers are almost always the ones who shoot. Sometimes the Israeli border guards give the refugees cover by firing back, and I don't know why the Egyptian soldiers hate us so much, even when we are leaving their land. They just don't want us to reach Israel. They do whatever they can to stop that. Once we made it to the border, we were handed over to the Israeli border guards who kept us there for a few days before transferring us to a camp. After 2 weeks in the camp, I was able to go to town, but we were not given permission to work. We had to work though, so while evading authorities, we did jobs like cleaning, working on construction sites and in kitchens. The people in Israel hated refugees and wanted us to leave the country. The future was not promising. I felt permanently insecure because the citizens didn't want us there. And now we hear about the race riots in Tel Aviv. So I'm glad I left to come to Kampala instead. Yeah. This is crazy. Nebiat is the name of this person. This testimony, I want to show y'all the face. These coming testimonies, I want to show y'all the face of the person while they're talking. This is a 12-year-old kid who was kidnapped in Sudan. He was an Eritrean kid who had no intentions of going to anywhere, to Egypt. This kid had just wanted to stay in Sudan, but he was kidnapped in Sudan, and then he was kidnapped in Sudan and sent to. He was kidnapped at 12. Then he was sold in Egypt, where he had to work burying dead bodies as a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old kid burying dead bodies to pay off his release for a year before he was finally released, and then he was detained. And this interview with him is after he got detained because he was illegally in Egypt. But the thing is, he was illegally in Egypt because he was kidnapped and brought there. And at this point of the video, he's like 13, 14. So let me turn off the effects. So I will try to, hold on. Actually, let me put it here. So I'll try, hopefully y'all can read the subtitles. Wait, did y'all hear what he said? He said, hold on. Did they sell you? Imagine you live in like 2020, you live today and you're talking about people selling a 12-year-old kid. A 12-year-old kid.
Just want to know why he's here. He has to be deported. So I'm going to have to get
there is possibility to talk with UNHCR to give him permission to stay in Egypt.
That's what he wants here. He doesn't want to go to Eritrea. He doesn't want to go to Ethiopia.
I can talk with Ambassador Mohammed and Diary.
Okay. Skariana? Skariana? انت عايز هجة بنو انت غير مهربنا
شو ناي كرماج
ناي كرماج yeah here
no it's okay
yeah that's big
but what is this
they hit him he was in Abu Ahmed Mohammed
Abu Sania
Ahmed
who is Ahmed
there's another trafficker كما ميرون هوا أنا ذكر على إنه قبرتش أو قد فكرة أرجع حضرت حيلي خهرة أجا برتعجن كم زبلة كذا لكم إثيوبيا تخيل كهماني كحكوا كل يوم حسب الله هذا حسب الله.
This is in Egypt. This is a 12-year-old kid who was kidnapped. He's an Eritrean kid who was kidnapped from Sudan, taken to Egypt. He was enslaved for a year where he had to bury dead bodies. And then after he was released, the Egyptian police arrested him because he was illegally in Egypt. But he was illegally in Egypt because he was kidnapped and taken there and sold there. And now he is 13, 14, and in prison.
على فكرة ده مش أول حالة كتير باسم ثالث.
I don't understand a young man like him that he left when he was 12, 13 and got kidnapped from Sudan and didn't have money, doesn't even want to call his family. He had to work with the Bedouins, burying dead bodies. That's how he paid off for his release. He's been in prison for 8 months and he's only 14. I mean, a 14-year-old is not supposed to be in prison. His only crime is he was kidnapped and brought to Egypt. Not by choice, but by force. His family don't even know.
Come in here.
Yeah, from this place, all this area, it is full of African. Here around, maybe
800 bodies in this mass grave. In this one place, there are 800 bodies.
area, it is full of African. Here around, maybe 800 bodies. From here to the end, 800.
And a majority of these people who crossed through the Sinai, no, this is in Egypt, in the Sinai. A majority of the people who crossed through the Sinai are Eritrean as well, by the way. So this whole time, what she was doing was she was searching for, she was searching for a 19-year-old girl, a brother. They were unalived, Ayan, not drowned. They were unalived. So this is a brother who was looking for his 19-year-old sister the whole time. And he's an Eritrean man, and he hadn't found her, and she was basically missing. And here she finally found out that his 19-year-old sister was actually dead. She was one of the trafficking victims. And now she has to break the news to her older brother that his baby sister is unalived, was unalived. So this is her meeting the brother.
እቲ ክስንታ ኮይኑ መሲልካ ሃርድ ዲስክ ሰብሒ ዝለይ መፂ ፀኒሑ ስእልታት ገለ ክርእ ፀኒሐ ኣብቲ ስእልታት ቁሩብ ከቢድ እዩ ንሰብ ከተላለ ምክንያቱስ ናይ ሬሳ ስእልታት እዩ ኖ ሕብሩ ክስታይ ዝኾነ ገለ መለታት ግን እቲ ሰብ መጀመርያ ርኢ ንሰበሎት ስእሊ ግን ዳርጋ ሙሉእ ርግፀኛ ንሳ ዝኾነት ኮይኑ እዩ መጀመርያ ሰንቢዱ
ስምዓክሎ
እንታይ መኽብለካ ደስ ኣለ ሓወይ ፅቡቅ ዜና ሒዘልካ ክመፅእ ደስ ይበለኒ ነይሩ
أنا ولا حتى زيون نعيد تبوي كانت زنوركون عاوني حجة كمان يحشني ولا أنا كمان كم جيبوا هنا وإذا قاعد ما نخبر
أجها
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it.
Sorry.
Meet Base 44.
Not the ad. My bad, y'all. This is, so the woman is a radio host, and she was speaking to enslaved people, so enslaved Eritreans specifically, and she was trying to help them either get a ransom or let them hear their story. And so now she's going to meet a woman who she used to talk to on the radio, who used to be a slave, an enslaved person in Egypt. And now she's like not enslaved anymore. She's free, right? And so now she's going to meet her for the first time. But unfortunately, it's going to be traumatic for the woman, because the last time that she talked to her was when she was still enslaved, right? So, yeah.
Imagine being able to
Oh my
build an app
God.
with your name on.
Sorry, y'all. Okay.
Hey! What's it? Oh, akala iki.
Yeah, trigger warning. She's gonna have a very strong like PTSD reaction. So I would say trigger warning to everybody, because this woman was basically enslaved in Egypt. Yeah. Now imagine like how bad everything has to be for people like this to leave the comfort of their own homes and go through these things, right? Imagine how bad it has to be. Here's another story. Hold on. Quddusan. Hey, Sunit. This is the story of Quddusan. I got married in 2006 while my husband was doing his military service. In 2010, my husband escaped to Ethiopia, leaving me at home with our 2-year-old daughter. He had told his superiors that he was going on holiday to see his wife and child, so when he disappeared, they came to my house and accused me of assisting him. That was the first I heard about his escape. They put me in prison for a month until I paid a fine of 50,000 nafa. After this, my husband contacted me through his family and I also decided to escape, but I would go to Sudan. I left with 2 of my husband's friends. We went to Tessaneh, where I was handed over to a Sudanese man, an Eritrean man, and 2 Adarab, who would take me and my daughter to Kassala. We paid 30,000 nafa. We walked at night through the forests from Tessaneh towards Kassala, until we reached Kulsa, a border village. The 2 Adarab left to find water, and the Sudanese man went to bring a car, leaving me and my daughter with the Eritrean man. This man raped me in the forest. I tried to fight him, but he was too strong. He blindfolded me with a scarf and didn't care about the screams of my terrified daughter. After he raped me, he left, and an hour later, the Sudanese man returned with the car to find me crying, but I couldn't tell him what happened. In Kassala, I was taken to a Sudanese family home where they gave me food and a room. The Sudanese man told me he would take me to the refugee camp, but that I couldn't go there with my Eritrean ID, cell phone, money, or my bag. He took them and said he would keep them for me and then left. I waited a week, but he never returned. An Eritrean lady in the neighborhood translated my story for the Sudanese people, and they said the man would not return. The next day, I was taken to Jaghrab. I spent 2.5 months in Jaghrab. I reported my case to UNHCR, but they didn't seem to care. I was pregnant from the grape, but UNHCR did nothing except give me a refugee card. Luckily, some Eritrean families I stayed with paid my costs to take me and my daughter to Khartoum. I reached Khartoum and I found some work, and then my husband came to find me there. By that stage, I was 3 months pregnant from the grape in the forest. My husband abandoned me after he found out about the grape and the pregnancy. I was shocked and I became very weak. The people who brought me to Khartoum contacted my father, who came to see me. My father asked my husband to support me. He explained that I am the victim in this situation, but my husband refused and demanded a divorce. I was still weak and unwell and needed a blood transfusion. My father stayed with me until I had recovered. In March 2012, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. He had all his vaccination shots on time. I loved him very much. He had suffered so much with me and was completely innocent. One day in September, he started wheezing and had a fever, so I treated him with sesame oil. The next day, he was still unwell, so I took him to the hospital. Suddenly, he lost consciousness due to a sharp drop in his blood circulation. Oh my God. Bruh. Her baby died. One day in September, he started wheezing and had a fever, so I treated him with some sesame oil. The next day, he was still unwell, so I took him to the hospital. Suddenly, he lost consciousness due to a sharp drop in his blood circulation, and he died. I was devastated. I was desperate to give my baby a good life. My husband never supported me or asked after me. I don't want to stay in Sudan, but I haven't found a way out. I'm so upset about my baby son, but now I must focus all of my energy on my daughter. I only want for her to be healthy and smart. Bruh. This is actually devastating. It's actually so devastating. To the people in the chat, like, can y'all have some, like, respect, like, basic respect, please? At least instead of coming in and talking about some people talking shit. I don't care. God. Hold on. There was one that was here. Give me a second. I don't know if I read all the stories. Medhin. I belong to the Pentecostal Church, which is not registered in Eritrea and is subject to persecution. I was arrested the first time in 2003 when I gathered with some other young people to pray, even though we were in a private house. A group of paramilitary police raided the house and arrested everyone there. I was held in Mysora prison for 2 weeks and only released on condition that I leave the Pentecostal Church. I agreed to the terms, but I would not really leave my church. I got married in early 2005. My husband is in the same church. Not long after our marriage, we attended the wedding of a fellow Pentecostal. The government forces raided the wedding and arrested all of the guests, including me and my husband. We were put in a prison camp called Camp Number 5 and were held there for 2 months. They put us under great pressure to leave our church. After 2 months, we were transferred to Adi Abeto prison, about less than 10 kilometers from Asmara, where we were kept for another month. From there, we were still not released and we were instead transferred to the hottest place in Eritrea. Here, they made us stay for 2 months before bringing us back to Adi Abeto prison again. Finally, we were released, but they took my husband away and put him back to military service. Even though he had already served since 1998, he escaped the military shortly afterwards, and to avoid another arrest, we decided to leave the Asmara area. In mid-2006, our first son was born, but he developed several health problems. My husband could not work due to the problems with his back and legs. We decided we had to leave Eritrea for Sudan. We used family connections to find people to smuggle us to Khartoum. While in Khartoum, I gave birth to our daughter. However, we had no papers in Khartoum, so we decided to go to Shaghrab camp. Here, life was very difficult. It was overcrowded. There wasn't enough food. We feared being taken hostage by the Rashaida, and UNHCR did not help us, even with my son's health problems. Finally, we returned to Khartoum with a bigger group. Although my husband still cannot work, I have found work as a washwoman in people's houses and as a hair braider. Sometimes people try to convert me to Islam, but generally people accept my Christianity. People who's coming in the chat, like I could not, like, I could not give a shit, like, who's talking about me, bro. Genuinely. I could not care less, I'm not gonna lie. Since there are a little bit more people here, by the way, I do want to read that one letter again. The letter of the person in Uganda. I do want to read that letter, because that letter emphasizes, that letter emphasizes how bad the situation is, you know? So, I do want to read that letter to y'all, because it is a devastating letter. So this is a letter that was written by an Eritrean who was in Uganda, in Kampala, in a refugee camp. And he decided to write, like, it was an unsent letter, basically. It was an unsent letter. to their brother after their escape, right? Yeah. Sawa is a military academy that people go to. Basically, they're conscripted indefinitely to go there. Tagadalai means rebel, by the way, and Hafash means basically people, the people. So anyways, dear brother, I write to you from a refugee camp in Uganda with a heavy heart. It has been 1 year. It has been 1 year since I escaped from Sawa. Do you remember the night I slipped away? I hugged mother goodbye under the acacia tree by our home. She held me so tight as if memorizing the shape of me. I was only 19, but I felt as old as our war-scarred hills. 19! Imagine how, horrific that is at 19 to have to experience that. At 19 years old. You're a kid at 19. You're literally a kid. She held me so tight as if memorizing the shape of me. I was only 19, but I felt as old as our war-scarred hills. In my rucksack, I carried a photo of father in his Tagadala uniform, rebel uniform. That black and white one where he's smiling after the victory at Misawa. All his life he believed in the promise of Eritrea. I did too, with all my heart. But I could not see any future for me in our country except as a soldier guarding endless trenches. The journey out was a nightmare. I won't tell her about it. 3 days across the scorching desert to Sudan, crammed in a truck with other escapees. One friend, a girl from Keren, didn't make it. We lost her to the heat and exhaustion. I still see her face in my dreams. The smugglers were cruel. At one point, we were left without water for a day and a night. I kept clenching that photo of father, drawing strength from his sacrifice and the dream he fought for. When I finally crossed the border, I collapsed and wept, torn between relief and guilt. Brother, I feel I have abandoned you all. I think of mother waking at dawn, still hoping to hear my voice in the next room. I think of our little sisters asking when I'll come home. What home can I promise them now? I'm safe from the military police, yes, but I ache with longing for Hafash, for our people. In the camp here, I met an old comrade of father's. He told me that father would understand why I left, that our struggle has taken a new form now. I hold on to that. Every night I pray for Eritrea. I pray that no more of our youth will have to run as I did, or drown in the sea, or languish in prisons. I pray that one day I can return to a country that honors the freedom our parents bled for. Until then, I remain in this strange land, neither here nor there, with Eritrea living in my heart. Please tell my mother I'm alive and safe. Tell her I'm sorry, and that I'll come home when our land knows peace and freedom again. Your loving brother. Oh, Lord. This is crazy. How many of y'all in the chat have known about this? How many in the chat knew about this? About what's happening? And how Eritrean refugees are basically suffering in Libya and in Sudan and in Egypt. Who knows about the situation in Libya? your first time hearing about it. Okay. Who knows about what's happening in Libya? You don't? Okay. So there's a full-blown slave trade happening in Libya. I'll show y'all footage from a slave auction. So trigger warning. It's really bad. So this is a slave auction in Libya. And the reason as to why the Libyan coast guards and Libyan militiamen, all that stuff, are getting paid by the EU and by the West, mind you, to enslave Africans. No, not to enslave Libyans, but to enslave Africans. Not Libyans, but Africans. People are being enslaved and sold off in Libya. And to prevent them from migrating, prevent them from crossing over to Europe. That's the reason as to why they're being enslaved. It is also rooted in a lot of anti-blackness, anti-black racism, and also to prevent them from migrating and crossing the Mediterranean Sea. And the reason as to why the EU and the West in general are paying Libyans and North Africans as well to do this is because they do not want refugees, basically. They do not want refugees, right? So this is footage from a slave auction. I did want to show you guys this. Very important footage. Very important footage in 2017, by the way. And this still is happening right now. It's even worse now, right? I'm in contact with some people who are in Libya. It's even much worse now.
A man addressing an unseen crowd. Big strong boys for farm work, he says. 400. 700. 700? 800. The numbers roll in. These men are sold for 1,200 Libyan pounds, $400 a piece. You are watching an auction of human beings. Another man, claiming to be a buyer. Off camera, someone asks, what happened to the ones from Niger? Sold off, he's told. CNN was sent this footage by a contact. After months of working, we were able to verify the authenticity of what you see here. We decided to travel to Libya to try and see for ourselves.
Now, let's go to the part where she is at the slave auction.
We're ushered into one of two auctions happening on this same night.
One of two auctions happening in the same night.
Crouched at the back of the yard, a floodlight obscuring much of the scene. One by one, men are brought out as the bidding begins. 400. 500. 550. 600. 650. 700. Very quickly, it's over. We ask if we can speak to the men. The auctioneer, seen here, refuses. We ask again if we can speak to them, if we can help them. No, he says. The auction's over, we're told. And we're asked to leave. That was over very quickly. We walked in, and as soon as we walked in, the men started covering their faces, but they clearly wanted to finish what they were doing, and they kept bringing out what they kept referring to in Arabic as al-budaa, the merchandise. All in all, they admitted to us that there were 12 Nigerians that were sold in front of us. And I honestly don't know what to say. That was probably one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen.
So yeah, this is something very real that has been happening. And that's why I felt like it was very important. Because when we hear these numbers, like 12 people sold, 10 people sold, 1 person sold, yada, 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 it kind of dehumanizes people to a point where, you don't, as I mentioned, 1 death is a tragedy, 1,000 becomes a statistic, you know? But all of these people are not a statistic. They had a name, or have a name, they have a name, they have a family, people who care about them, people who love them, and deserve to be and should be humanized as well. And that is precisely why I will try to post 1 story every time in my server. If you want to join my server, the link is in the bio. I will make a special channel specifically for the Eritrean testimonies. I'll try to find ones with the face on them. But yeah, I will be posting that regularly. So that you can see the faces and the names, and the people who are experiencing these things, because this is not normal. It's not normal that in 2025 people are being enslaved. It's not normal that people are just drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, right? This is not normal at all. There was this one tragedy in 2013, I think, where a boat capsized off of the ship of Lampedusa, off of the coast of Lampedusa, and over 370 Eritreans died in one night. Over 370 in one single night. Was children involved. I think the youngest were at 5 years old or 3 years old. If you see the photo, you can see literally the little casket, the children's casket. Hold on, I'll show you all the photos. I posted about it on my main page as well. But yeah, look at these photos. These are all the caskets of the Eritreans who died. Look at all of these people. Look at all of these people. Look how small this casket is. This is literally a baby. A baby. Look how tiny this casket is. Look how tiny this casket is. This is also another baby. Right? This is unacceptable. Look how tiny that casket is. A casket that tiny should not exist, especially when it comes to a baby being left to drown in the Mediterranean Sea. And their lives were not mourned. Their lives were literally not mourned. They just disappeared. over 370 Eritreans literally dying in one day. Like, this is how sick the situation is. Right? And now imagine how bad the situation has to be back home in order for them to have to leave in this manner. Like, imagine how bad the situation has to be back home for all these people to leave with all of these risks. Do y'all understand? Like, the population is like 3 to 5 million people, 3 to 6 million people. It's not even a big population. It's not even a big population. So when it's losing this many lives, right? And it's losing this many lives, it is completely devastating to the population. Completely devastating to the population. Right? I can tell you that, like, the Lampedusa tragedy is literally like a tragedy for all Eritreans. Like, all Eritreans mourn that day. But yeah, Sunit, if you want to come up and talk about that person that you mentioned, I don't think I know that story. You can definitely come up and explain that story, by the way. I don't know that story. Hold on, let me invite you up. I've sent you an invite.
Hello.
Hey, bro. Sorry, I don't know if you were here the whole time, but I just decided to, there were some letters and everything like that were found. And I just wanted to kind of humanize a lot of the Eritrean refugees that I already talk about, and so I decided to read their stories. But you mentioned a story. Can you please share it? You're kind of low, by the way.
Oh, wait. Let me try to reduce my... Okay, can you hear me?
I'll just mute.
Okay. So the story I'm about to do, I don't know if you know, but there's, in like 2017, 2018 timeline, there was a lot of like news articles. Like, that's when people were able to speak. Yo, I'm just gonna meet this guy. Hold on, bro. Shut up, bro. Halas.
Yeah, just mute them. If you're not paying attention, just mute them. Yeah, continue.
No, because he was just yapping and arguing with everyone in the comments. But basically they had access to media, and so from Libya, and they were able to speak to people. And then there was a story of Haran Ahmed. He talks about how he was sold 3 times by, I don't know if I can say the word, as trades. And okay, so basically he ended up making it to Germany. So people use this as a success story, but it was never, like, nothing about it was successful. So so he said, after living a year and a few months in Sudan, I started a journey to Libya with other migrants, paying 600 each to smugglers. We were 98 on a lorry. People had to sit on top of each other, and the heat was unbearable. We had encountered a lot of problems on our way. There are 3 armed people in the desert who stop you all of a sudden and steal everything you have. And then he goes to say that at the border place, a group of gangsters kidnapped us all and took us to Chad. They drove us for 2 days through the Saharan, and they led us into their camp. They brought a car, and those who can pay 4,000 each can get into the car, and those who can't have to remain there. We didn't have the money, but we talked to each other and decided to pretend we had and got into the car anyway. And then him and his friends were driven for another 3 days before arriving to another place, and where they sell migrants, including Haran. So he says those who took us over there told us that they had bought us 4,000 each, and that unless we paid that money back, we wouldn't be going anywhere. And then their fate did not come up with the money, so it was hauntingly clear. So he said there were migrants, mostly of Somalia and Eritrea origin, who had been there for more than 5 months. They had suffered a lot, and they didn't look like humans. Sorry. And then he goes, to the point they weren't looking like human beings, right? So he goes, we suffered a lot too. They forced us to drink hot water mixed with petroleum to make us pay them quickly. They gave us a tiny amount of food, and only once a day. They tortured us every night. Too bony to buy. Can you guys actually, like, I can't fathom how disgusting that is. Imagine someone not only just having to sell them, but being too bony to buy. And so eventually the traders became fed up, and they go, you're not going to pay us, so we will sell you. The traders told us Haran, and then he had no food for more than 2 months, and we were very bony. As a result, the man who they brought to sell to refused to buy us, saying they don't even have kidney. Guys, Anyway, so the traders found a buyer, a man from Libyan city of Saba, who paid $3,000 each. Okay? So he goes, unless you are lucky, the police will catch you and take you to prison, and they will sell you to they will sell you, okay? So, and then they were sold for $3,000 each, and then we got into the car convinced we couldn't see anything worse than we already seen. But in Saba, after the 4 days of travel, we faced a suffering that was inhumane. They tortured us, putting plastic bags on our face, tying our hand behind our backs, and throwing us upside down into a barrel full of water. They beat us with steel wires. And then him and his friends endured this torture for a month before finally managing their reach to relatives and begged them to send them money. They let us go, but before we got very far, some people ambushed us and took us to their warehouse. They told us that unless we pay $1,000 each, they wouldn't let us go. The torture and beatings continued. We called our family back home and asked them to send us money again. They sold their cattle, land, and whatever possessions they had and sent us the money. So this is their refugee status, right? So Haran made it 480 miles north to the capital of Tripoli, a major hub for those wanting to risk the endangered journeys across the Mediterranean. And because the situation was a bit better, we worked for a few months, whatever jobs we could get, and then crossed Mediterranean to Europe. But even that is not safe. Unless you are lucky, the police will catch you and take you to prison, and they will sell you to smugglers. Imagine the same people that were supposed to protect you selling you for $500, only $500. And he goes, Haran was quote unquote the lucky one. He reached Italy before crossing into Germany, where his refugee request was accepted. And then he goes to say life is good and all of that. But he goes, we buried one of our friends at the border between Egypt and Libya. 2 more of them left us in the city of Saba. I don't know whether they are alive or not. Another girl fell into the Mediterranean, but some other managed to reach Europe.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't know about, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that, Sanit. But also, I feel like a lot of people don't know the true gravity of how people are suffering in all of these areas, whether it is stuck in refugee camps or trying to flee, or it's crazy, right? So what do you maybe want to say to the people who are for the first time being exposed to any of these stories?
Okay. So Kofi, I've told you my story about this, right?
Yeah.
This does reach very close to home for me. I did grow up in an area. I grew up in Sudan. So, this whole Eritreans and everyone else that was promised a better life. They were basically, like for the Americans, the best way I can explain is they were promised like the 40 acres type of story, And I had one of my childhood friends get kidnapped, and she was being held at an auction for $500. And then even when her parents paid, they never got her back. Till this day, they don't know what happened to her. So the best way I can explain is that just because you guys don't hear it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Libya has been on this whole slave trade story thing for 1,000 years, and then they abolished it in 1920, and then it reoccurred in 2011 after their civil war. So it is a very sad story, and it's happening right now. It is, but what's it called? It is a very common story. There's a lot of videos. Kovi, I can share them to you, and then if you want, you can share it with them. There's a man that still talks about his wife and the things that they've done to her, and how it's not just that they're making them suffer, and how sadistic it is to make their families that are not there, to make them hear it. It is so evil. It is disgusting. And it doesn't take a lot to find research on this. It's literally a quick Google search can help you find it. But like, have you seen the story on Al Jazeera, Kofi?
Which story?
How the enslaved people, and how they, like in 2015.
No, you want to show it to us?
Okay, so on the night of June 2nd, 2015, gunmen blocked a highway on Libyan northern coast and stopped a white truck speeding towards Tripoli, the capital. The men trained their assault rifles on their driver. Three climbed they climbed abroad to search the cargo, and then basically Ruta, her name, she's a 24-year-old Eritrean, was lying on the bed of the truck first trailer. Besides her lay 85 Eritrean men and women, one of whom was pregnant. A few dozen Egyptians hid in this second trailer, all shared one dream, that was to reach Europe. The gunmen ordered the migrants off the truck. They separated Muslims from the Christians and then men from the women. They asked those who claimed to be Muslim to recite the Shahada, a pledge to worship only Allah, although all of the Egyptians shouted the words in unison. There is no God but God. Muhammad is a messenger of God. Allahu Akbar. The gunmen called back. So Ruta realized that then she was in the hands of an Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Her captors wore robes and beige with camouflage prints, clothes she had seen on the other men in Libya. Most of them hid behind black ski masks. A black flag waved from one of their pickup trucks. Okay, and then he goes, "We were certain that we were talking us to death." And then she says, "A Christian who wears a black thread necklace to symbolize her Orthodox faith," she said she cried in despair. And then her captors had other in mind, okay? So an Islamic State, beside battles to expand in Libya, is rewarding its warriors by exploiting the great exodus of African migrants bound for Europe. Okay, so an Islamic State, again, they were exploiting.
ISIS instead, like TikTok-friendly language.
Oh, no, I haven't even brought up that one. So since the group emerged in Libya in late 2014, 240,000 migrants and refugees have traversed the war-torn country. Over the past 18 months, Islamic State fighters have abducted at least 540 refugees in 6 separate ambushes, according to 14 migrants who witnessed the abductions and have since escaped to Europe. The fighters then enslaved, raped, sold, or exchanged at least 63 captive women, 9 of whom described their ordeal in detail to others. Their stories comprise from the account of how Islamic State turns refugee women into slaves, using them as human currency to attract and reward fighters in Libya. It is the same blueprint of abuse it employed in Yazidi women in Syria and Iraq. There's a whole video about this, guys, if you go and find it. But it goes, because of its proximity to southern Europe, it shared borders with 6 African nations. Libya is Islamic State's most important outpost outside Syria and Iraq. It is territory that the group is fighting hard to defend. In August, the U.S. fighter jet bombed the stronghold of Islamic State in Libya in an attempt to wrench the city from the group's control. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to Ruta and her story. She talked about, so she left Eritrea, okay, and then she trapped in her job as a storekeeper for a government-owned farm. Like most young Eritreans, she was a conscript in the country's long-term government national service, which lasts well beyond 18 months, mandated by law. She could hardly get by on her own, where she was getting only $36 a month. But she felt she could quit and risk angering the state, which is often accused of human rights violation. So she was described as a petite woman who smiles easily, takes over her smiles takes easily over her face entire, decide to take a risk. In January 2015, she walked across the border into Sudan with a cousin and 2 friends, her heart set in Europe. In Khartoum, Sudan's capital, she spent 4 months raising $1,400 she needed to pay to smugglers for a trip to Libya. She tried and failed to find a job. So like thousands of refugees before her, she called relatives abroad to pitch in. She talked to recent...
Oh. Sunit will come back. I do want to show y'all a video as well. Okay, there we go.
But hold on, I'll wrap it up. But basically they kept talking about her. She couldn't find a job, so she asked.
Oh, I think she maybe got a call. I'm guessing.
Oh my god, I'm so wanted today. I'm sorry. But she needed $1,400, so she asked family members and everyone. And then so by that time, she talked to recent people that went and then found an Eritrean smuggler who clients gave him a glowing review, okay? So before setting off into the desert, she heard stories about armed outlaws who raped women in Libya. She paid a doctor for contraceptives injections that would last for 3 months. And goes, once you leave Eritrea, there is no way going back. I did what any woman would do. The first leg of her journey went off with a hitch. In May, her convoy crossed the Sahara and reached the Atajibia in the northeast of Libya. She believed that worst was behind her. Though no one counts migrants who die from sickness, starvations, and violence in the desert, refugee groups say more may perish there than down the Mediterranean Sea. She goes, no one stopped us in the Sahara, and the smugglers told us we wouldn't worry about the Daesh. So she said, using an Arabic acronym for the Islamic State, I was never expected to see an organized state like theirs in Libya. She was wrong. On the night of the kidnapping, the armed Islamic State fighters ordered Ruta and the other Christians back on the truck. The men climbed onto the front of the truck and the women, 22 in all, onto the back. They drove east, threading the same road they had driven hours earlier. A pickup truck with a mounted machine and gun trailed close behind. A half hour later, the truck turned right into a dirt road and the soft glow of town's light shimmered. A few male captives had seen the videos of Islamic State head removals. Okay, I can't say that right. So realizing the gunmen belonged to the group, the men jumped off and ran into the flat desert. Gunfire erupted, some fell dead, others were rounded up, and a few got away. We thought it would be better to get shot than head removal, she said. That was Hagos Hagdu, one of the men who jumped off the truck and said in an interview in Sweden. He wasn't caught that night and made it to Europe months later. We didn't want to die with our hands and legs bound. Even an animal needs to writhe in the honor of death. So she got raped, she got pregnant, her kid was unalived, and all of that. So, guys, when I say these stories are so easy for you to find, search it up.
Wait, she got pregnant?
Yeah, she got raped.
She got raped, she got pregnant, and then the baby was unalived.
Yep.
And then she also saw people having their head removed in front of her.
Yep.
And people want to convince us that this is normal. That this is just your average thing that happens and you shouldn't mourn it. You shouldn't grieve it, you know? You shouldn't talk about the situation when families are being destroyed as if it's like not a big deal. I last time was fundraising for an Eritrean mother who was in Ethiopia. Oh, sorry. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was once fundraising for an Eritrean mother like a week ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago. She was in Ethiopia, right? But her son, who's 18, was in Libya, had been kidnapped, and was being held for ransom. And they told her they would only release him if she paid them $8,000. Where is she going to get them $8,000? She's like a mom on her own. And then while she was raising the money so they can push her to raise the 8,000, they were sending her torture videos of her son, of her 18-year-old son. Like they were literally, and she showed like one of the torture videos of what they were doing to her son. And I saw them, and it was legitimately sick that they were sitting there torturing an 18-year-old kid. And they told her that if she did not pay them the $8,000 in time, that they would sell the kid into slavery.
That's so disgusting.
Yeah.
I lost my faith in humanity when a mother and her daughter was and like being enslaved, and the father couldn't pay $10,000. Okay, he couldn't pay $10,000, so they sent him a video of her getting raped and her daughter. And then later on, because he couldn't pay it at all, in Libya, they sent him that, right? Because he couldn't pay it at all. They ended up getting another video of just their heads. Can you believe that? Just their heads. No body, no nothing, just their heads.
And they were Eritrean.
They were Eritrean. So like, I'm so sick and tired of people trying to make this be like something that was a long time ago. This is happening today.
Yeah. I want to show a video because the thing that you just mentioned was talking about the ISIS and the videos that were like in 2015, I think. And so I want to show a short clip of the people who were there, the ones who escaped, the Eritreans. And this is from a documentary. And these are the witnesses of the things that Sunit was even reading with regard to the head removals that were done.
In June of this year, reports emerged that Islamic State militants had captured a group of Eritreans and Ethiopians on their way to Tripoli. Mass executions were committed. We had discovered, however, that some had managed to escape, but despite their perilous journey, were being held in a detention center by anti-migration forces. The guards allowed us to talk to them.
Imagine the ones who escaped are in detention centers. Imagine how sick that is.
5 people escaped. The 4 with me are underage. Yeah.
And he's saying they're just 15, 16-year-olds. Imagine, 15, 16-year-olds, and they saw people having their head removed.
15, 16. Just I'm on all them.
The Islamic State has since released a propaganda video depicting the massacre the boys were.
I'm gonna cover the video. So he says, we were traveling from Ain al-Jabia when we were caught by ISIS. I'm just covering some of this stuff. So he says, when they captured us, they separated 80 of us Christians, 10 were girls, 70 were boys.
Muslim blood that was shed under the hands of your religion is not cheap.
they give us opportunity to be a Muslim or to die.
I'm gonna cover this so it
I
doesn't
chose
get me.
to be a Muslim.
They unalived them in front of their face, and they're in front of their.
ولحد خالد زروان خلنا حواتنا 57 أوردات كقطر قالوا شو منت
57 were unalived, 8 Ethiopians and 49 Eritreans.
إيرتراويان شو منت إثيوبيان 54 كا إثيوبيان إيرتراوياني اليوم كا 10 والدين شو منت أنا أشوف
10 girls and 8 young children are still in the hands of the ISIS.
We go travel 2 days and 3 nights. In travels, the dealer take our money and send us, go, get out. We go to the Tunisian border because we need help to United Nations. We need a country to help us. We need people to help us.
Kobe, were you there in 2015 when the head removals were going viral of Eritreans on Facebook?
Yeah, I didn't watch I couldn't bring myself to watch the videos though. But yeah, I was there. I heard a lot about them, yeah.
Because the crazy part of this is that again, because I was in Sudan, right? So I seen a lot of people that were promised this better time in Europe by going through Libya and through the ships and everything, right? And the amount of people that went missing, that they called it accidental deaths or drownings, right? I don't think people are realizing that none of them were accidents. These people were not drowning. They ended up, imagine you get told that they were unalived because they drowned, and then you find them on Facebook being their head removed. I can't fathom how disgusting this is.
Yeah, definitely. I did want to show one more testimony, basically, because this whole live has been really dedicated to just Eritrean testimonies, Eritrean victims, in all the refugee camps. And this last thing I wanted to show you is an Eritrean man whose wife and child were enslaved or were held for ransom. And he is basically now being made to speak to his wife. And because the traffickers, sometimes they let you speak to your loved ones. And then maybe sometimes torture you while you're speaking to your loved ones, so that you can push you to try to kind of buy them off, the traffickers, right? So this is a man who was speaking to his wife, who is still stuck there, by the way. So let me remove this, right? People who know my account, they probably already saw his story in my account. But the ones who don't know it, this is the story.
بينهم لهم بقى اتسوال عقل انت عارف مجبوهم سرعة قرول دونت ولا عقل تسأل
والله كسرني بدك كتلاصي عند من لاصيك طرح نفسهم حفكوف كتبلا عم نفسك انت يقددوهم ده جهاسهم ده تعالي فهمك تعالي
She couldn't even answer that question. Whether she was raped or not. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Is there anything that you want to add, Sunit?
No, bro, it's like, you know, when these things are so out there and none of the media is pushing it, and it is so saddening. Genuinely heartbreaking, knowing that these are literally our people and not even our own people are acknowledging it. That's the saddest part out of it. They are so quick to turn a blind eye, and it is so embarrassing. It's disgusting to me. I can't fathom it. They go through so much worse than what you guys just heard on that video. And that was her. I don't think you guys understand the amount of strength that woman has for her to even not be able to answer that question for the sake of her husband. Like, the amount of the wisdom and the amount of confidence in her voice while she's talking, because this is not normal, you guys have to understand. And even her own husband couldn't even take it, so that's why she stayed silent. She couldn't answer because she knows, and he knows. But it does start with us. For everyone that's saying how can we help, it does start with us. Make a post, make a repost, share, talk about it, let it be heard.
Yeah. If you're in my server, I'm gonna make a special page in the server. And every day or every couple of days, I will be posting one story, one testimony. And I'll try to get the testimonies with the faces, and then that's up to you guys, right? I want to mobilize you guys to post. You can save the photo, save the story, and then repost them in all the servers you are in. And if you're on social media also, you can repost them on social media as well. But that's like the task that I want to kind of give to people, that anytime I post a story, you just kind of share these stories, because this is not normal. The Eritrean people who are dying literally in mass. Like, people don't understand how many people are dying, like, with such a small population as well. Like, how many people are leaving, how many people are dying, how many people are just stranded everywhere. It's legitimately, like, actually sick, the amount of life that's being lost, and the way that it's not being discussed at all, right? And so that's one thing that I'm going to ask of y'all, that when I start posting the stories, that you guys just repost them. Even if you literally have just like 2 followers, 3 followers, you could actively repost them as well. If you have any extra coins that you do want to donate, there is a link in the link tree in my bio, to protect a 17-year-old Eritrean kid. His name is Eob. He was enslaved and separated from his family when he was 14 years old. 14. He was enslaved. Okay? He was enslaved when he was 14 years old. A kid. And his mother and his siblings were separated away from him, were taken away from him. And then he was kept in enslavement. He was released after a year or so. Ever since then, he has been detained about 6 or 7 times, he said. Every time tortured. When I took his number and I was trying to help him with UNHCR and trying to give him the number that he can sign up to, all these different things, I saw his age, and his age was 2008. 2008 is when he was born. And then he just randomly was like, oh, do you want my torture video if something happens to me? And I was like, wait, what? What torture video are you talking about? And he told me, oh yeah, when they detained me, when they caught me and they were torturing me, they recorded me with my phone. So they recorded him with his phone in Libya, mind you. And here is a 17-year-old kid who has a video of himself getting tortured on his phone. And he sent me that torture video as well. So, yeah. I posted that torture video in the trigger warning section of my server as well, if you're in there. I did post that video in the trigger warning section. But yeah, like these are stories that need to be told. These are lives that deserve to be grieved and not just forgotten, like they have been the whole time. Because you have to understand, like Eritreans, this isn't the first time that Eritrea has been neglected or forgotten or ignored. Eritrea also in the past went through a 30-year genocide. 30. A 30-year genocide and also independence war. And during that genocide, it was also ignored to the point where you had journalists referring to it as the loneliest war because of how ignored it was, right? So that's one thing I'm going to say. I'm going to be sharing this testimonies in my server, and then you guys can share them.
Kobe, if it helps, I will gather testimonies because I know a lot of people that were in Libya, that were in those camps too.
That would be amazing.
So I'll reach out to them, and then I'll share their stories too.
Yeah, they can write like a short story.
Yeah, because just because they made it out, it doesn't mean like they've lost so many family members. I know Amanda who has lost his wife and 2 kids. And he barely made it out. So these are just these guys, this is not even like the beginning of the stories. It goes so much deeper than this. It is one of the most disheartening thing that Eritreans have to face, and every time we are told to either move on from it. How can we move on from something that's still happening? This isn't like 20 years ago. This isn't 5 years ago. This is happening today, yesterday, tomorrow.
Yeah. I had a cousin who was sold into slavery, right? So it's like this is something that impacts like all Eritrean families, whether it is through like either you have somebody in your family who was sold into slavery or was captured for ransom, or you know somebody who that happened to, right? So this is a very serious situation, of course. And now you have to ask yourself how bad everything must be like at home for people to have to like choose to go through this, right? Choose to risk this, right? And this is what I wanted to show. I wanted to show this kid. Hold on. This was a kid who was stuck in a refugee camp, and I do want to show him. Wait, where was he? Give me a second. Hold on. Where is he? It's just devastating. I'm not gonna lie. This kid. Hold on.
You know what I've noticed, Kobe? This is not a new thing. But I've noticed when it comes to topics like these, they need someone that is a different skin tone than us to talk about it than hearing it from us. Have you noticed that? Because it's all of a sudden, it's, oh my god, I didn't know this happened. And then the whole time there's thousands of people talking about it that look like me and you. But yeah, no, I do, I'll talk to you about it, but I do want to talk about the FGMs that do happen in those camps too.
Also, I feel like the people who talk about it need to be able to humanize Eritreans too, because I've noticed that people pretend like they care about Eritreans, but they're only doing it to like dehumanize Eritreans, you know?
It's all so performative, man.
Yeah, I agree. I want to show you this clip of Eritreans who are in a refugee camp in northern Ethiopia. Hold on. And this is going to be like the last what's called I show you, but I think their voices matter. So, okay. Look at the living conditions, by the way. But anyways.
كابيموم الصراحة غيرتا يلن نديام تزنبره هنصاتات يفرس أفتح عد الصام منسيات يلون كلهم وطيمين كلهم تسيدوا من طفيمين سلازس حدث ميتون نبت كرسيان زقبرون يقولون تسكيم زبصحهم عادتي
What's called is really... Okay. This is a 16-year-old kid, by the way, mind you. A 16-year-old kid who is stuck here instead of, you know, living life, I guess.
السودان بسرور السودان سجل لحظكم تتحيي مالك أكثر كليتي سبيشال كاب ساعة 10 حلقة ساعة 3 سنين جوزله مولى ليتي إن هذا كارما هو غير ده كان اللي هو ماسكير عند برو يونا يتلا اليوم يا حجانا عيني إذا سسنا عيني ظهر من سيفضلني زون ما يوعي سيس لي الشهي زون يفضلني تاي ماسكير أساس قبل ما أيوة يفضلني
زي مترسها تفلتهم عنا لهم حاجة وسوم بخلي دم تهي ثلاث فلتوصل والحاجة قلنا ما كم جلنا فلتين ولا ما كان مدفع جلنا فلتين ما رأس زين خل نخون المقعدة ما رأس زين خير قدي كمان.
What did he say? He said, but since I don't have a choice or another way of transport, I'm forced to go with them. This is a 16-year-old kid, by the way. 16-year-old kid is saying, I know that there are unalivings, I know that there are enslavement, I know that there's disappearance, but I don't have any other choice. I don't know. It's just shocking to me. How could you look at this person and then say that their life doesn't matter? A 16-year-old kid.
I just want to say, these are the pictures that they're showing. just not even to acknowledge the fact that they're being sold and enslaved, just to say that there are Africans in Libya. This is what they're showing. This is what their justification is. They're giving them juice boxes, guys. No shoes. When is it enough? How many more voices is there to be silenced for them to be heard? Like, when is it truly enough? I'm so disgusted. Oh my god.
It actually,
Anyways, people.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, it actually like fills me with so much rage. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you have no idea how angry I get. Like, and I don't understand how other people are not angry. I don't understand how other like Eritreans are not angry, because there are some diasporans who are not angry. They just like live their life like it's okay, everything is fine. And I'm just like, why are you not angry? Like, why are you not angry that your blood is literally dying and being tortured and enslaved and suffering? Like, is it because people don't realize, maybe? Is it because they don't actually fully know how many people are dying and how many people are suffering? Is that why maybe people are not angry? I don't know. But the thing is, it's like, I don't know, man. It's actually very worrying, I'm not gonna lie.
You know, it's not that they don't know. They know. Because, you know, so many news outlets have covered the reaction of the world and leaders in the world reacting to what's happening in Libya currently. They know about it. They know what's happening. They don't care. They don't care. That's the problem. And I don't know how desensitized you have to be to not care about your own people.
Yeah. Like, and the thing that pisses me off is like, especially if it's people who visit like once a year, all that stuff. And I'm like, you're visiting once a year with like your diasporan money, but you don't care to talk about the people who are suffering. Like, make that make sense. How are you visiting with your diasporan money? You're basically showing off, like, look at this, I have all this money, yada, yada, yada. But then you don't speak on the people who are suffering. You don't talk about the people who are suffering. You don't advocate for the people who are suffering. And my question is, how are you sitting there not caring about your own people when you know everything that was put into it? You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. It's just very disheartening. I think we lost Sunit, by the way. But yeah. It's very, very disheartening. But anyways, hope y'all are doing well. Everything is good. If you have any questions, you can definitely DM me. I will try to host more lives about this, and I'll also post the testimony.
Actuellement, mon sandale, pas fait ma route sandale moi.
Attendez, pas fait retirer sandale. Non, ma paf qui sont rappelés à faut man tellement son.
Regardez, où aller chercher. Bad. Il
a. Et tu Mounki.
Mon qui elle est
ne me laisse pas aller chercher la patronne.
Comment va?
Coucou Lolo.
Allez chercher patronne.
Monkey, est-ce que tu peux lui rafraîchir la mémoire, s'il te plaît? Je crois qu'il a pas compris. C'est bon, ça.
Ah, on va pas ça, on va passer. Le reggae.
Regarde, là, au mérite.
Bien sûr.
Béti, salaud. Où ça, c'est pas souvent mon cas réclamer son tas. Où ça,
c'est son tas, mais c'est animal là.
Et au cas où moi.
Oui,
c'est Moonlight.
Il peut finir, C'est pour ça que je ne pas côté, il peut finir.
Ah bon.
Regardez, il faut finir. Nous commençons en travail, il faut finir.
Excuse-moi, non, par contre là, je vais faire un coup de gueule.
Ah bon, il dit...
Non, c'est bon, attends, maintenant coup de gueule pour bail. Parce que tu te souviens que le dernier son qu'il a fait, il a fait écouter sous son live et c'est qui t'écoutait? Jordan.
Exactement.
Il va même faire nous écouter, nous faire écouter Jordan.
Voilà.
Nous pas jouer à attends, mon pauvre fini, Mad. Nous pas jouer à écouter.
Voilà.
Écoutez, nous pas battre Jordan, Jordan t'es là comment t'es qu'à poser. Ça
veut dire c'est notre faute.
Ça différent. Non, il pas écouté, il m'a dit il vient le matin, mais t'es qu'à poser son, m'a porté même fini poser son.
Oui, c'est notre faute alors.
Ouais, c'est notre faute quoi.
Écoutez, son autres non, c'est Jordan tani après autres parce que t'as m'as posé le matin, moi supprimer. Oui, moi ni là toujours.
Et il y a un truc que je vais rectifier là, mais attends. Ouais. Tu as dit que tout à l'heure là t'as pas. Non, attends. Il a sorti. Le son n'est pas totalement fini. Mais t'as l'air, il fait nous comprendre et qu'il fait nous écouter son en l'autre jour.
Oui, mais il fait ça quand son fini.
Et pourtant, attends, Diamond.
Moi dis ça avant ça. Moi déjà dit ça avant ça.
Excusez-moi, je me permets de dire que, en vrai, j'avais donné un délai d'une semaine.
Oui, ouais, c'était ça.
Et tu m'avais dit que c'était déjà prêt.
Oui, mais comment ça m'a fait des refrains. J'ai fait des refrains. C'est comme je fais avec, lui, il était là quand j'ai fait le premier refrain. Mais le son.
Le premier
ouais, mais c'est pas ça, c'était pas ça le son. Parce que ça pas été bon. Et puis, moi, dormi, ma vie élevée. Et puis, ma base de l'autre côté à 20. Et c'est après, il tenait.
Non, mais excuse-moi de te dire ça, tu me connais, ça m'a fait chier. Mais je vais la préférer. Diamond, nous pas moun.
Ouais. Nous pas moun. Mais attends, nous avons dormi comment on a fait les bails là, ça.
Ah bon?
Si, écoutez, comment on a enregistré ça à partir de 5h, 6h. C'est là qu'on a commencé. Non, mais ça pas fait dans les 7 épisodes Kevin Babé, ça oui. Je fait à partir de 5h, 6h, c'est pour juste trouver un petit inspi, aille dormir, lever, je réveille battant là.
Ah d'accord, donc pour pas donner communauté son.
Voilà.
Ça que ici.
Pour moi, je dormais pas.
Stella.
You make my light shine bright.
Ah, elle aime toujours là de toute façon.
You know me want. Yeah, me want you. My honey boo. You my paradise. Oh girl, me never gonna hurt you. It's you and nobody else. Me love you. You my queen and my body hell. Me never gonna hurt you.